So let's talk about what we will do as graphical measure if it's numerical. So if it's numerical measures, then the only graph that we do is a histogram. And this is the standard histogram, and I'm drawing any histogram here. So these are the different bars, but these are touching each other. So it's continuous. There is no gap between the bars. And that's what we call a histogram. This side are the class, and this side is the frequency. So that's a standard histogram. Now there are certain rules we follow for the histogram. There is a reason for that. So if I join this midpoints of the histogram, we get what we call the frequency curve. This frequency curve actually give you the shape. So there are three different possible shapes that we can get from the histogram. This is called symmetric. This is called, these two are skewed. Since the longer tail is on the right hand side, we call this right skewed. Since the longer tail is on the left hand side, we call this left skewed. So these are the different types of shape we can get from the histogram. Now this shape depends on how many classes. Meaning that here 1, 2, 3, 4 classes. If I increase the number of classes, the shape will change. So we have to decide first how to actually come up with these classes and how many classes we want. So here are the different steps. Step 1, this is to create a histogram. Step 1 is find the maximum number and the minimum number from the data set. Step 2, how many classes? How many classes you want? That will be square root of n. How many classes you want should be a square root of n, meaning that if you, n is how many samples you have. So that's the way it'll be determined. And step 3, you need to find what's the width of each class. That will be the max minus the mean divided by the number of classes. So these are the 3 steps we need to go through. And again, I'm not drawing that by hand ever. We will use Minitab, but this is the information if you need even to draw that in Minitab, how many number of classes, and that's square root of n. So I posted a data set of heights. So heights of individuals. Heights is the name of the data set that I posted in Canvas. And so the data set are heights of students, and there are 28 data points. There are 28 data points. So what would be the number of classes? How many number of classes that we need to have here? That'll be square root of 28, and that approximately is 5. So we will always approximate it. We will always take the integer, nearest integer of this number. So square root of 28, the nearest integer is 5. You can take 6, that's fine too, but 5 will be more appropriate. Now again, if we follow the step 1 there, we need to know what's the maximum number. So if you look at the data set that's given to you in Canvas, the maximum number is 190. The minimum number, that's 142. So number of classes, step 2, I already decided that'll be 5. It's coming from here. And what's the width of each class? So the width will be calculated by 190 minus 142 divided by 5. So that'll be approximately, so this is 48 divided by 5, approximately 9 point something. So I'm just taking 10. So I will take a width of 10, number of classes 5. So let's make the what we call a frequency distribution table. So let's make that table. So frequency distribution table. What we need to write here, first class and then the frequency. F stands for the frequency. How many classes and where to start? So again, we are going back to here. The lowest number is 142. So either we start from 142 or below that. So I'm starting from 140. So 140 to 150, this is the 10. This is the width 10. 150 to 160, 160 to 170, 170 to 180, 180 to 190. Then we have 5 classes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes, and the width of each class is 10. Now we have to count how many frequencies are there. So it's just a counting process. So I'm just counting between 140 and 150, I have one value. Between 150 and 160, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. Now here is a question. If there is a 160 in the data set, where should I put it? In here or in here? This number, hold on. So what we are talking about here is that if we have a 160 in the data set, where should I put it? Where should I count it in the frequency? Is it here or is it here? Now technically this number, this 160 right here, this is 159.99999, meaning it's not actually exactly 160, it just stops just below 160. So if I have exactly 160, it will go right here. It will go right here. Similarly for 170, 180 and so on. So I have a 160 here. I should not count it here. I will count it here. So the next group, 160 to 170, I am counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think 13 of them in there. 170 to 180, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them in there. And for the last one, 180 to 190, I have 2. So total 28. So I should have 28 data points. So that would be what we call a frequency distribution table. Now that's exactly what I'm going to draw as a histogram. Again, I don't want you to draw that by hand, but if you decide to draw that by hand, how are you going to draw this? So I'm just draw it here. So this is class, this is frequency, and then I'm just approximately taking this as maybe 4, 8, 12, and so on. So this will be class that starts from 140 right here to 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, like that. So this is 1 frequency, and then I have a 5. I'm approximately drawing a 5, and there's a 13 like that, and that's a 7, and that's a 2. So this is your histogram if you decide to draw that by hand, but we're gonna draw that using Minitab. So the reason I go over this is to understand the utility of 5 classes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes. Minitab does not know that. So Minitab will create its own histogram. Then we have to change it to 5 classes. So that's important to know that how to get to these steps, step 1, step 2, and step 3, even if you are doing it in Minitab, because this number is going to change. And also it's important to get to the shape of the histogram, what type of shape you have here. And for this one, it looks pretty symmetric to me. If I join the midpoints here, it looks pretty symmetric, but someone can argue that, okay, it may be a little bit left skewed. Maybe a little bit left skewed. It's possible. So that is the histogram part. And again, I will show you in the next video in Minitab that how to draw a histogram in Minitab. But that's pretty much the histogram discussion.